This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
University evacuated. A bomb threat forces St. Mary's to clear its campus in Halifax.
Code of conduct concerns. Disability advocates worry the new code could unintentionally penalize some students.
And pup crawl. Raising money for the CNIB one paw step at a time.
Our latest system finally departing overnight with brighter skies and warmer temperatures for Wednesday. Your full forecast is coming up.
Threatening messages to universities in Halifax caused major disruption on at least one campus today.
At noon today, officials at St. Mary's University contacted Halifax police about a bomb threat.
Evacuate, evacuate, evacuate. Take all of your personal belongings and go to the nearest exit immediately.
Police helped evacuate the campus, including all university residences. Nearby streets were closed and police swept the area with their canine unit. But in the end, nothing was found and the all clear came just before 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Someone also sent threatening emails to Dalhousie University. Police are not saying whether the threats are from the same source. The search for two missing children in Pictou County has been suspended once again after restarting over the long weekend. More than 100 people from several search and rescue organizations were back in Lansdowne Station on Saturday and Sunday looking for any signs of Lily and Jack Sullivan. The two siblings were reported missing on May the 2nd, and the initial search was scaled back 5 days later. Search manager Amy Hansen says nothing was found over the weekend, which led to the decision to suspend the search on Sunday.
It's just the lack of evidence and burning people out and exhausting resources across the province. And at this point, it's a lot easier to get people out just on weekends because they have the time. A lot of people are a little more resistant to taking time off work and doing stuff like that when it's this long into a search.
Hansen says it'll be up to the RCMP if and when search teams are called back to the area. On Saturday, the missing children's stepfather told CBC he was grateful for the search effort.
I'm just hoping for anything, man, anything positive. I've had just so much negativity over the last 2 weeks. I'm just hoping for something positive, a positive outcome. It's bringing the kids home. That's the main goal here. It's the main goal. It's just to find the truth, man.
RCMP declined to be interviewed, but said in a news release they're looking at the results of this weekend's search before determining their next steps.
A restaurant and brewery in Inverness has been found guilty of violating a liquor licensing regulation following the death of its brewmaster. But a penalty has not been decided yet for Route 19 Brewing. After a hearing last fall, Nova Scotia's Regulatory and Appeals Board says the company failed to maintain control of the premises the night that Dallas Lewis fell off the roof and died. The province's alcohol division has alleged 3 infractions of licensing regulations and called for a 60-day suspension of Route 19's liquor license. The Regulatory Board is calling another hearing to determine an appropriate penalty for just one violation.
A lawyer who represented the victims' families at the Mass Casualty Commission is raising questions about transparency and the RCMP. A Moncton man was arrested after a stolen, marked RCMP vehicle was driven across the border into Nova Scotia on Friday afternoon. Traffic on Highway 104 was backed up for close to an hour. The police did not issue an alert at the time. Lawyer Michael Scott calls that concerning.
Certainly, I think I probably had the same reaction that anybody in Nova Scotia would to hearing that somebody was driving around in an RCMP vehicle. But it's certainly concerning as well to know that the public wasn't alerted to that particular fact, given the fact that we spent a great deal of time on these sorts of issues during the Mass Casualty Commission.
The RCMP eventually stopped the stolen vehicle using a tire deflation device. Ryan Snoddon with us now after a long weekend for a look at the weather forecast.
Yeah, kind of a gray start to folks getting back into the swing of things.
Yeah, for sure. And a less than ideal long weekend. May's been a bit sluggish here over the last couple of weeks. And no, I mean, there's no greater story than the temperatures today really telling that. I mean, single digit highs. This time of year, that's definitely cooler than where we should be. We should be around 15, 16, 17 this time of year. We'll get back at least closer to seasonal, especially along the Atlantic coastline for Wednesday with a mix of sun and cloud. Looking at a fine day overall. We're going to be seeing those northeast winds keep temperatures a bit cooler in the onshore winds for Inverness and across the north shore of Nova Scotia on Wednesday. Now looking ahead, we will be watching this low continue to depart. There's the northeast flow. Area of high pressure, that's directing traffic, so that's going to keep us calm even into Thursday. We'll see some high cloud cover starting to work its way in on Thursday. Temperatures, though, still favorable for this time of year. Then we got another system to watch. Some wet weather rolling in for Friday. We'll explain what that means for the weekend forecast in your 7-day coming up in a few minutes.
Do stay tuned.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
The new provincial student code of conduct is sparking concern among the disability community. Some are worried that the emphasis on stricter punishment could have a negative impact on kids with disabilities or complex needs. Our Selena Alders reports.
A long-awaited update to Nova Scotia's Student Code of Conduct was welcomed by many. But for some parents and disability advocates, they're concerned it could unintentionally target certain students.
I think there needs to be a lot more collaboration around what are we doing to better understand why a kid might be violating the code of conduct and how we can address that root cause instead of being reactionary to the incident itself.
Anna McQuarrie has 3 kids with disabilities who sometimes act out because they're not getting proper support at school.
And we are leaving these kids to carry the bag and carry the weight of the lack of support. And often behavior is the only communication that some kids have to express themselves.
The new code of conduct was released in April and came as a result of rising rates of violence in schools. It offers stricter consequences and lays out expectations anytime students engage in unacceptable behaviors. It also says students with behavioral issues could be given alternative learning settings outside the classroom. Stephanie Carver with Inclusion Nova Scotia says this could lead to the exclusion of students with disabilities.
If we don't find ways in the education system to fully support and help students with intellectual disabilities learn in that setting, and we're removing them, we're saying to them, you don't belong here. We're saying to their families, you don't belong here. And we're saying to their non-disabled peers, they don't belong here.
Autism Nova Scotia shares these concerns. In an open letter, the organization said it worries that an over-reliance on punishments could increase barriers to education for students with complex needs. The Department of Education says Inclusion Nova Scotia and Autism Nova Scotia were consulted on the updated code. They say staff will be required to consider a number of factors when determining a consequence, including a student's developmental capacity. Selena Alders, CBC News, Halifax.
Premier Tim Houston made good on an election promise today, announcing that free shingles vaccines for seniors will be available next week, starting next week. Houston says his government wanted to ensure anyone 65 or older who wanted to get vaccinated could do so.
We really want to make sure that we remove the barriers to maintain opportunities for people to be vaccinated and to be healthy and thriving.
The cost of the program is expected to be about $26 million this fiscal year. One seniors advocate says the $400 cost for 2 doses of vaccine meant many people who wanted it were going without.
It was really a huge barrier. You know, a couple of $100 for each of the shots that people need is a barrier. It's both a barrier straight financially for people, but also ones that make people think twice. And will I wait until next month? And do I really need it right now? So the cost has been a huge issue.
Dr. Robert Strang, Chief Medical Officer of Health, says the risk of hospitalization due to shingles complications increases when people turn 65. Other provinces like PEI and Newfoundland offer free shingles vaccines to anyone over the age of 50. After more than a decade of volunteer service, a female firefighter has been elected as the new chief of the Lance Fire Department. She is the first woman to lead a fire department in East Hants. Magda Batista has her story.
Lance Chief, go ahead, dispatch.
Amid sirens and the sound of emergency calls, Kenza Harris has made history by becoming the first female chief of the Lance Fire Department. Harris was one of the only 2 female firefighters in the department when she first joined 14 years ago. Since then, she has earned the respect of her peers in the traditionally male-dominated field.
For me, it probably put as much pressure on myself now as the first female in East Hants as I would if I was the 50th. I want to do a good job. I think being a fire chief in a volunteer organization comes with a lot of responsibility. So really, for me, my focus is making sure I do the job well and do the department proud.
Following the retirement of the former chief, Harris was elected by her colleagues. Other female firefighters, like Caitlin Oaks, say the appointment marks an important moment for the department and a clear sign of openness to change. She says it was a decision based on Harris's abilities, and she hopes her leadership will encourage other women to volunteer.
It's nice to see a female in such a leadership role, and for little girls in the community especially to look up to her, and hopefully we'll get a few more females around here to outrank the boys, show them how it's done.
Harris takes on the new role with a long list of challenges, including the recruitment of more volunteers and the construction of a new fire hall.
This fire hall, it's been around since approximately 1971, and as you can see, it's pretty jam-packed here. So they're in the midst of planning for that.
Definitely been times in the department's history that I've been here where it's not been so great, so making sure we stay constantly thinking about what comes next in the 6 months, 12 months from now. Do we have enough members to meet what the community needs from us?
All challenges, Kenza Harris says, she's ready to tackle head-on. Magda Bastida, CBC News, It's Hands.
Halifax has officially launched its first round of electric buses. 60 buses are ready to roll across the region, and a transit facility was expanded to handle the new vehicles and technology. The $112 million project was supported by all 3 levels of government. The new charging equipment at the Ragged Lake Depot is powered by solar panels on the roof. The move cuts down on the city's greenhouse gas emissions and saves money on fuel.
Halifax's climate is comparatively mild compared to, say, Edmonton, where I know they've had issues. So we shouldn't see too many problems here. And of course, part of the extensive testing that we've done has been to see what the performance is like in the winter and to make sure that they'll meet our needs, even on the harshest days when there's, a foot of snow on the ground and when it's minus 20 and blowing. So we should be all right.
Halifax plans to eventually have 200 zero-emission buses. Many will be electric, but the city is also exploring hydrogen power. Nova Scotia and Halifax have committed to hitting net zero emissions by 2050.
Well, CNIB is currently having its 6th annual pup crawl. That's when they ask people to complete 5 kilometers of movement to raise money and awareness for guide dogs and buddy dogs.
Taking part this year is Riley, a black lab who was part of the Buddy Dog program, and her young owner. The CBC's Hannah Vino caught up with them on their walk.
With one paw in front of the other, Riley begins her 5-kilometer walk. Along for that walk is 10-year-old Cam Mamie. The pair, along with family and friends, set out on the BLT Trail in Halifax for the annual pup crawl, which helps raise money and awareness for CNIB's guide dog programs.
Do you like Riley a lot, or do you love her a lot?
Yeah.
And are you happy to have her around?
Yeah.
Cam has low vision and is too young to receive a guide dog with CNIB, but was placed last year with Riley through their Buddy Dog program. She helps Cam through many challenges in life. Every year, they name a dog as designated race director for the pup crawl, and this year, Riley got that distinction to guide Cam through the race.
What else do you like about Riley?
That she makes me feel brave.
Cam's parents say that Riley has been life-changing for the family.
We look at Cam before he got Riley and after he got Riley because his independence and his confidence has just soared.
Well, as a family, it opens up more opportunities for us to do things. We used to kind of hold back from doing different activities because it would be quite hard and stressful for Cam to take on. But since Riley's entered our lives, it's given us a lot more freedom as a family to explore and try new things as well. So it's been a lot of fun.
CNIB's CEO and president joined the family on the walk, and she says there is a demand for many more Rileys.
It allows amazing kids like Cam to test his own boundaries, to get a sense of what he can or can't do, and it shows mom and dad and siblings and everybody around them just how capable someone like Cam can be taking care of his own dog, which might not be something parents think they can do when they get when their child gets a vision loss diagnosis.
The pup crawl runs until the end of the month, and for anyone interested in participating, you can visit their website. Hannah Vino, CBC News, Halifax.
Yeah, that bird is saying, bring on the sunshine, right?
Looks a little lonely there,
It
too.
does. All right, Ryan's up next with full weather forecast. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
The weather update is brought to you by Tourisme Gaspésie. Plan your stay in Gaspésie at tourismegaspésie.com and enjoy extraordinary moments.
All right, Ryan with us now. I love how in the first hit, Ryan, you already alluded to the weekend. Looking ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
bracing everybody.
Bracing for the
sure,
weekend.
but tomorrow we get a bump
Yeah,
in temperatures,
we get a
right?
break.
And some sun?
That's right. Exactly. And we did get some breaks of sun, at least some folks did on the weekend, but boy, it left a lot to be desired, didn't it? For sure. Now, as we look at the forecast moving forward, yes, the next 2 days are probably the best over the next handful, but there's optimism for next week that we'll finally be able to kick out of this pattern, which has really been...
What can you do about it? Can you do something? Like, give it a good push?
I can
complain.
Gently break the news to everybody,
Yeah,
for
you're doing a
sure.
great
It's
job
all
of
about
that.
the messenger, right?
Yeah, sure.
Have a look at our webcam video this evening, and listen, always a beautiful spot, no matter the weather.
It's nice there, yeah.
And Lunenburg will get a lot busier than this, I'd say, in the next few weeks and months as things pick up there, no question. But pretty quiet there in downtown Lunenburg tonight. 9 degrees, the high in Lunenburg today, and most of Nova Scotia capped in those single digits, which, that's cool for this time of year. It almost kind of felt like a fall day today. I don't know why it had that feel to it. Maybe with, the trees are kind of, in almost full leaf now, and that northeast wind. We've already had some warm days. I don't know. It had that kind of a feel to me anyway. You can see still hanging on to the single digits at this hour, and it's going to be a cool night in that northeast flow. We'll see those winds continue from the northeast around 20 kilometers per hour. Sustained at 30 at last check in the Halifax area and up towards Amherst as well. And we're gusting around 40 kilometers per hour. Those gusts should start to ease a little bit. But we will continue to see that chance for some showers this evening. And as we back things out, this is the low, which will continue to skirt off to the east. This is the area of high pressure that's going to settle in. And then we're going to have to contend with this next system. And that is going to be another slow mover that will impact our weather for multiple days. We kind of like these, the quick moving patterns. The systems come, the systems go. That is not going to be the case. Now, as you can see, most of that warm air, remember last week, Winnipeg was up to 37 at one point and then down into the single digits. But definitely the warm air has been squeezed down to the south. And you can see from Vegas across to Atlanta, 30 plus. And south of that line, Canada looking very spring-like, early spring-like, definitely punching a little below our weight right now. As we look at the temperatures for tonight, we're going to be in the mid-single digits with that northeast flow. That chance for showers will be ending through this evening, and then it's just pretty quiet overnight. Will become partly cloudy, in fact. Tomorrow, a pretty fine day overall. Again, the northeast wind keeping things feeling a little bit cool for this time of year, particularly in through the north and east in those onshore winds. But as you will see with the temperatures for the forecast map tomorrow, water temperatures are up a little bit over the last couple of days. No question. I've noticed that 4 degrees just off from Sydney, now 6 degrees. So the onshore winds not packing as great of a punch as they would earlier in the spring. We're making progress there as well. We'll be near 13 to 14 for inland areas and southern areas of Cape Breton. 15 at Sherbrooke. Again, temperatures along that north shore, likely single digits in the onshore winds, but we'll squeak into the double digits inland. Truro 14, down towards the Halifax area as well, in and around Cobequid Bay. Will be variable based on the wind, but it does look like we'll be into the double digits and low teens there. A similar story in through the valley, bit of an easterly flow coming in off the water, and an easterly flow coming in through the South Shore region into the afternoon as well. Generally east to northeast wind here. 15, likely one of our warmer spots at Keji. Now, as we walk you through into Thursday, I did show the closer timeline here just to show you we will see some increasing clouds for Thursday into the afternoon. The winds are going to become more east to southeast on Thursday. This is going to impact temperatures in Cape Breton and along that Atlantic coastline. Our warmest temperatures are going to be the valley to the north shore. That's where we'll climb up into the 16, 17 range. Here's that next system. This is going to be the wettest period here. We've got these periods of rain coming through Friday morning into Friday afternoon as it lifts off to the north. Then this low is just going to kind of sit and spin for a couple days, and we'll get these pulses of moisture. This looks like the next one. Model's doing a pretty good job of this, at least I think. They're in pretty good unison that we'll see that second push of rain for Friday night. And then for Saturday, some lingering showers, but also the possibility of some sunny breaks. And at least temperatures, mid-teens, so not too bad. On the backside of that low, we're cooling off for Sunday into Monday. And again, positive that we're going to start to see things change for early to mid next week, Tom and Amy.
Positivity,
Right.
that's the key.
Eventually we'll get there.
Thanks,
Eventually.
Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Coming up, a Nova Scotia lawyer questions why the Mounties did not alert the public after a marked RCMP vehicle was stolen last week. A Moncton man was arrested after a stolen, marked RCMP vehicle was driven into Nova Scotia on Friday afternoon. Traffic on Highway 104 was backed up for close to an hour. The police did not issue an alert at the time, eventually stopping the stolen vehicle using a tire deflation device. Michael Scott is a lawyer with Patterson Law in Halifax. He represented a majority of the family members of the victims at the Mass Casualty Commission that looked at, among other things, the RCMP's response to Canada's deadliest mass shooting in modern history. Sir, when you heard of this incident that happened on Friday, someone stealing an RCMP car, racing it down the highway, but the public were not told when this was happening, what were your thoughts?
Well, certainly, I think I probably had the same reaction that anybody in Nova Scotia would to hearing that somebody was driving around in an RCMP vehicle. But it's certainly concerning as well to know that that the public wasn't alerted to that particular fact, given the fact that we spent a great deal of time on these sorts of issues during the Mass Casualty Commission.
So, with your experience, you might expect that the public would be made aware?
It would fall under a number of the key recommendations from the MCC to deal with, recognizing the trouble that can be caused by someone impersonating a police officer, and also the importance of transparency in communicating potential public risks to the public.
Does the public need to know if the RCMP think they have the situation under control?
I think that's going to be situational. Obviously we don't know a great deal about what's happening here, but the relevant question is always going to be whether the RCMP had it under control. If it was truly under control and there wasn't a public safety risk, then that might be a different issue. Not everything gets communicated to the public as regards policing. But it has to be taken seriously when we're talking about someone who has the potential of passing themselves off as a police officer, because it's acknowledged that the community will respond differently to either a police vehicle or someone in uniform. And in those circumstances, it really does benefit public safety to share that information.
The police haven't said very much in terms of any details about exactly what did happen, only the scarce outline, or the scant details, I suppose. What does it say about the willingness of the RCMP as an organization to communicate with the public?
I think the Mass Casualty Commission more broadly identified and named what has been for many years a culture of secrecy within the RCMP and a reluctance to share information and be transparent. And also key recommendations were made that that's something that has to change within the organization, and that the RCMP has to be willing to make admissions when they've made mistakes, even if it's embarrassing to the institution, and to communicate more candidly with the community. So the fact that we're having this conversation again is perhaps somewhat discouraging, but I suppose we'll have to wait to see what the facts are. When you look back since the Mass Casualty Commission, do you see evidence, just as a member of the public and certainly as a professional in the work that you do you see efforts made by the RCMP to be more public? You mentioned the word transparency there before. To see them be more transparent? No. I mean, we've seen some gains in the use of things like the Alert Ready system. I think we're all aware of the gains that we've seen there. And certainly the RCMP has been very responsive to changes in equipment and training and those sorts of issues. But I don't know that I can say I've seen a great deal of cultural change in terms of a willingness to be more transparent and to communicate with the community that they're supposed to be serving. Do you have any sense, there are these regulations now around looking like an RCMP officer, having an RCMP car with decals, et cetera. Do you have any sense of how they're working, if they're working, in your view? Well, I mean, it's hard to prove a negative, but I mean, certainly I think, the events of April 2020 highlighted the tremendous risk that is posed by somebody being able to pass themselves off. The issue of impersonating a police officer both corrodes confidence in the police, in as much as we don't want people having to question whether the officer that pulled them over is actually an officer. And two, driving in a police vehicle or looking like a police officer grants access that most people don't have. So the moratorium, to the best of my knowledge, is still in place as regards the sale of decommissioned vehicles. And we do have much tighter restrictions on police paraphernalia, uniforms, things like that. And the hope is that we never see an issue like that again. And so if there was a do-over for Friday, how would you think the public should be made aware of? Should it be through the alert system? I mean, social media is a frayed world out there. Many avenues where you could put a message out to people, I suppose. In your mind, what do you think is the best way to handle this? In today's day and age, the mechanisms there's all sorts of ways to do it. That's not really the issue. We have found that social media is perhaps not always the best way to get urgent messages out. That's why we have an Alert Ready system. But it only works if you use it. So depending on what the facts of this particular case were, because again, we have to operate under the caveat that we don't really know the extent of the risk. But the fastest, most effective way of communicating a public risk to the public is through that system. Everyone has a cell phone. It pushes out, for the most part, to everyone. We don't have to worry about, people having internet access or whether they happen to be on Twitter. the best mechanism we have is alert ready, and that is in place. And we've certainly seen some use of that in recent years, but that's what its purpose is for.
All right, Michael Scott, we will leave it there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anytime.
Coming up, health officials in Gaza say more than 85 people have been killed in renewed Israeli airstrikes.
And King Charles and Queen Camilla visit Canada House in London to mark 100 years of the Canadian High Commission. Welcome back. Israel is pressing ahead with a new military offensive in Gaza. Health officials say at least 85 Palestinians have been killed in airstrikes.
This is happening as Israel allows some aid trucks to enter the territory after an almost 3-month blockade. Trent Murray is in Tel Aviv tracking the latest.
Well, Israel's Air Force has said that in the past 24 hours it launched 100 separate strikes across multiple targets in the Gaza Strip. That does align with what the Palestinian Civil Defense Agency has been saying, which is that they have been responding to multiple strikes both in the north, in the central part of the Strip, but also particularly around Khan Yunis. It is an area which has seen multiple evacuation orders issued in recent days. We also know that, of course, the situation on the ground for humanitarian aid remains very difficult. It was only yesterday that the Israelis allowed the first batch of trucks into Gaza, the first ones that we have seen since all the way back on March 2nd when this blockade was announced. It was just 5 trucks that were let through. That comes against a backdrop of very dire warnings from the UN about the number of children and infants that are at risk of starvation and malnourishment because of this ongoing blockade. And of course, whilst Israel is stepping up its military manoeuvres in Gaza, there are still ceasefire negotiations underway in Doha, but according to reports there, they are now effectively at a stalemate. We have heard from Qatar's Prime Minister, who has been quite central mediating the talks between the two sides.
One party is looking for a partial deal that might or have the possibility to lead to a comprehensive deal, and the other party is looking just for one-off deal and to end the war and to get all the hostages out. The delicacy of that situation in the region right now is critical.
And with the Qatari negotiators saying that Israel's latest efforts are undermining any chance at peace as both sides seem further and further away from agreeing to any sort of ceasefire. In Tel Aviv, Trent Murray for CBC News.
King Charles and Queen Camilla paid a visit to Canada House in London to mark its 100th anniversary. It comes ahead of the royal couple's trip to Ottawa, when the King will deliver the throne speech to open Parliament on May 27th. The CBC's Briar Stewart brings us more.
A royal visit to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the opening of Canada House, the High Commission located in Trafalgar Square in central London.
And these two, I think you know.
Inside the grand building, King Charles and Queen Camilla were taken across the giant map of Canada, outlining the country's vast territory. The royals are headed to Ottawa next week for a trip to Parliament, where Charles will deliver the speech from the throne.
People are really embracing the fact that we're a strong, independent, united nation.
Perry Bellegarde thinks Charles's visit will send a powerful message.
Canada is a sovereign, independent nation, a strong, independent country, and he's King of Canada.
The trip will be Charles's first visit to Canada as king. He had planned to go last year, but that changed after he was diagnosed with cancer. The last time a reigning monarch gave the throne speech in Canada was in 1977.
I have always been full of admiration for what Canada is.
During Queen Elizabeth II's reign.
Mr. President, are you close?
Charles's invitation comes at a time when Canada is trying to swat away the 51st state taunts coming from the White House.
There are some places that are never for sale.
But never say never. Never say never.
Very keen interest.
This royal biographer says Charles's 2-day visit will garner a lot of attention, but don't expect the monarch to wade into politics.
He's been doing these sort of, been doing global international diplomacy for half a century. So he's got a fairly good idea, I think, of where the boundaries are, what he can say, what he can't say.
While his visit to Ottawa will be brief, it will be symbolic and serve as a reminder of Canada's place in the Commonwealth. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Police have reopened the case of 2 men who drowned in a bay off Lake Ontario 10 years ago. New evidence shows what police initially thought happened was incorrect. The families of the victims hope this will finally bring them justice. Nicole Williams reports.
For the last 10 years, these 2 families have agonized over what happened to their loved ones.
Nothing's the same as it was before.
21-year-old Tyler Miracle and 26-year-old Maddie Fairman both died unexpectedly in the spring of 2015. The 2 friends had decided to go spearfishing in the early morning hours of April 26 on the Bay of Quinte in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory, about halfway from Ottawa to Toronto.
They said they were going out for probably an hour. They're just going to spear a couple of fish.
But Miracle and Fairman never made it back home. Their bodies found in the waters nearly 2 weeks later. Their boat also discovered at the bottom of the bay, connected to a net full of rotting fish that belonged to someone else. Police believed the two men had cut the net and tried to haul in the fish, overloading the boat, causing it to sink and the two men to drown.
These boys were experienced fishermen. Robin had Tyler out in the water since he was 3 years old.
They were only going out to help, teach. They wanted to do something good. They weren't thieves.
Now the families might finally be proven right. An investigation by the Aboriginal People's Television Network put Miracle's boat through a series of tests, including loading it with more than twice the weight of fish police say was in the net at the time. It never sank. Ontario's chief coroner confirmed the results and has now reclassified the deaths from accidental to undetermined.
Which means we don't actually know what happened.
The OPP has since ordered its investigation into the case be reviewed. Toronto Police confirming it's taking the lead, a relief to the families who have lived the last decade in anguish.
Yeah, it's been a living hell. There was times when I didn't want to be here, and there's actually times I tried not to be here. How do you move on without your baby?
It just wrecks your whole life. You don't look forward to, like Bev had said, you don't look forward to life anymore, right?
Nicole Williams, CBC News, Tyendinaga, Ontario.
The clock is ticking on a new strike by Canada Post workers. They could be on strike again from midnight on Friday, meaning any parcels or letters you plan on sending with them or expecting could be stuck in limbo as of this weekend.
We didn't take that decision lightly to go out onto the picket line, but there are some things, that we can't. We're not willing to give up.
It would be debilitating to the Canadian economy at a time where it just doesn't need it, and it would only worsen our financial situation.
Canada Post received strike notices from the union yesterday. Some 55,000 workers are set to walk off the job on the same day their collective agreement expires. Both sides indicate they're willing to go back to the bargaining table, but they're still far apart on the big issues.
Canada's inflation rate eased last month, coinciding with the end of the carbon tax. But the same cannot be said when you look beyond food and energy prices. The CBC's Nisha Patel looks at what rose and what fell.
Prices at the pump were 18% lower in April compared to the same time a year ago. The drop was driven by the end of the consumer carbon tax and falling oil prices thanks to higher production from OPEC countries. That helped cool overall inflation in April to 1.7%, but the price pressures for food continued.
Weaker Canadian dollar in April, could have been part of that. You also did have some tariffs imposed on fresh fruits and vegetables from the United States.
Fresh vegetables cost nearly 4% more. Tea and coffee rose 13%. The price of fresh and frozen beef jumped about 16%. Droughts in North America have reduced cattle herds, leading to a smaller supply of beef and higher prices.
Our cost of goods in general, not just for beef, but for paper products, for oils and everything, they continue to rise.
David Neinstein owns Bark Smokehouse in Toronto, where meat is a main attraction. He says his costs have spiked 30% over the past 5 years.
We've had to transfer that cost over to the consumer. We just can't afford, or we take it off the menu because we can't afford to sell it at a reasonable rate.
And shoppers at the grocery store say it's tough to find relief.
Bread has gone up like way up in prices. Like meat, chicken is you can't buy chicken to make a 2 meal anymore. It's just it's a 1 meal thing.
I never used to care about budgeting food, but now it's it's essential in the sense of trying to get the cost of living down.
You find yourself going after better deals if you can, or if you see a sale, you kind of stock up and sort of hope that it lasts and is shelf stable.
So core inflation is still a concern, and at the same time, the trade war with the U.S. is a real strain on the Canadian economy. It all makes the Bank of Canada's next interest rate decision a little more difficult. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
A new study suggests Canadians can get some types of surgeries like knee and hip replacements faster. And the plan doesn't require more operating rooms or even more funding. It calls for surgeons to work differently. Christine Birak explains.
Researchers insist wait times for scheduled surgeries can be sped up.
I think Canadians need to understand how much more we could achieve if we just reorganized ourselves.
Right now, most patients on surgery wait lists don't go to the next available spot. Instead, referrals land them on one surgeon's wait list, which may be longer or shorter. Using data from over 17,000 procedures in Ontario, researchers simulated wait times in 5 regions. They found a coordinated referral or central line for both the consultation plus surgery can eliminate prolonged wait times for joint replacement surgery. In one region, the total wait for 90% of patients dropped from about a year to around 6 months.
So if this could get Canadians their surgeries faster, why aren't we doing it?
A lot of surgeons are still skeptical. They're concerned that they'll lose their source of referrals.
It's not about forcing it. It's about doing it in a way that makes sense for patients first and for clinicians. Look at this.
Dr. Mohammed Al-Arakia spearheaded e-referral, a system that shows wait times and manages referrals in parts of Ontario. Patients can choose whether to see a preferred doctor, stay in a certain region, or just opt for the shortest wait time.
What we've seen is most people want the shortest wait time. But if you want a particular surgeon, you should be able to choose.
We don't like, hearing about patients who are suffering.
The president of the Canadian Orthopedic Association says surgeons are open to new models.
If this is brought into a way when you have surgeon input and you have patient input and there's still some decision making and choice, that's when you'll see a tremendous amount of buy-in.
I support any measure that actually reduces wait times.
Tina Moffat spent over a year in agonizing pain awaiting hip surgery. She understands change takes time, but says it can't happen fast enough. Christine Birak, CBC News, Binbrook, Ontario.
Well, hockey fans across the country are watching this year's playoffs, and they only have one option left if they want to cheer for a Canadian team.
The Edmonton Oilers are headed into the Stanley Cup Western Conference Final this week. The CBC's Paige Parsons has that story.
Edmonton Oilers fans say this is the year the team can take the cup.
You watch, we're going to go all the way.
We want the cup! As this year's playoff run heats up, Oilers diehards are once again welcoming fans of other Canadian teams to hop on the Edmonton bandwagon.
All Toronto fans are all going to be Oilers fans now, so including all Winnipeg and Vancouver, everything's going to be all Edmonton now.
We have Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. I think this fan base reaches far more than the city of Edmonton.
The Oilers are the last Canadian team standing in the playoffs, facing off against the Dallas Stars starting Wednesday, knowing some fans are shifting allegiances to back them.
And obviously, there's going to be some Flames fans or Toronto fans that probably aren't cheering for us.
The pressure is on now. Winnipeg Jets fans' hopes were dashed on the weekend. The Toronto Maple Leafs are out too, and some of their fans are fed up.
There was more jerseys on the ice in the last 10 minutes that I saw jerseys in the stands.
Like every year, it's the same song and dance. It's just brutal.
Even Canadian skaters playing against Toronto say they don't envy the pressure Leafs players were under.
It's got to be tough on those guys to walk to the rink every day and not feel that, because you see the way the fans treat them at the end. Like, how do you not feel that every single day?
And so it's all on Edmonton, facing a more formidable version of Dallas than last year.
They traded for Mikko Rantanen. He's one of the best players in the NHL, so they have the star power that maybe they were missing a little bit last year.
But this sports writer adds that the Oilers are now more experienced too, that they have the depth and the talent to win.
I think the general hockey fan in Canada will be cheering on the Edmonton Oilers. They want a Canadian team to win the Stanley Cup. They want to bring it back to Canada.
They meet the Stars on Wednesday in Dallas. Paige Parsons, CBC News, Edmonton.
Canada's main stock index made gains today to close at another record high, while U.S. markets ended down. Here's a look at the numbers as we head to break. Back to wrap things up and clear skies tomorrow. We're all feeling good about that.
Yes, we're going to take that as a win.
That's right. And, we're still making progress. Even the cloudier, damp days, things are coming around a little bit. And I made a trip to the valley this weekend and can confirm the apple blossoms are on the go.
They're on their way? Okay.
Had a couple of pictures to confirm that in the inbox. This is one of them, not from the valley, but we're going to zoom in on Queens County. This one from Greenfield, Queens County. This was taken.
That's lovely.
Full bloom.
Yeah. This was taken on the 14th, so last week, and just a terrific shot. Thanks so much to John for sharing this, and to many of you. The inbox was plumb full today, and love to see it. So Ryan's picks at cbc.ca, keep them coming. So we will be looking at temperatures in for the most part, 10 to 15 range for tomorrow, 12 to 15 really. I think we'll be a bit cooler in that 9 to 10 range along that North Shore and into Cape Breton. Though inland areas of Cape Breton should climb to the 13, 14 area in and around the Bredor Lakes. Now, as we look at Thursday, the wind's coming from the east, and so it will be cooler along the Atlantic coastline. Warmest temps from the valley through Cobequid Bay, Colchester, Cumberland, and the Northumberland Shore, and even Inverness County will climb into the double digits and low teens in that easterly flow. So there goes the low moving out, high pressure moving in. If only it would dominate for a little bit longer than what it is going to. It will fade away with the increasing clouds, and then here comes that next system, which will move in the dampest part of the forecast, certainly Friday, with some lingering showers into the weekend, but maybe a few breaks of sun on Saturday.
Fingers crossed.
So.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Well, a health check can be big or small, but here's one that's really tiny. 9 rare hazel dormice are getting a checkup at the London Zoo before they're released into the wild next month.
The health screening is part of a UK conservation effort to help the vulnerable mammal. The species was once widespread across England and Wales.
Their population has plummeted by more than half over the last 25 years because of habitat loss and climate change.
There you go. A lot of effort underway there. That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.